I'm excited about today. I finally got my good buddy Jake Labhart out to California. Jake from the In Extremis Performance group. He's the man behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. Jake, welcome.
Dude, we're out here.
We are, and you're out here.
I'm excited about it. Yeah.
I am too, because I'm going to get to spend several days with you here. The team is out here. You're out here with one of our instructors, and I want to talk about the instructor group too. Yep. And I'll give a disclosure here in a second, but I'm going to get to see some stuff I haven't seen in a while. There's been some evolution in some of the things that IEP is teaching, but we talk all the time.
Yep.
We just don't.
A lot weekly.
Yeah. Quite frequently, sometimes too frequently, and sometimes not frequently enough. So, but these conversations are always better in person, and I'm stoked to have you here. So yeah, in just full disclosure for people that don't know, I've been involved with IEP for the better part of a year now, maybe a little bit more. And I got introduced to you out when you were out here, probably the last time you were in California.
Yeah, man, right? I think so. Yeah. We've been to Washington since then, and Canada, obviously, but not California.
Right. So, and I got to witness what was going on with the Tactical Performance Lab, which is really the origin story of IEP and kind of where it came from. Yep, and so we can talk about that a little bit, but I'd already been impressed, and we connected leading up to that, and you invited me in to kind of see what was going on, because it was the first time I was able to talk to somebody that was not from the institution, like of law enforcement, that was teaching law enforcement officers or coaching law enforcement officers at multiple different levels. Mm-hmm. Also, your background, and more specifically, your background came from the world of human performance, and you had onboarded a couple of people along the way to support you in that, because that, again, is where the roots started. And then I got to see what was actually happening on the range and how that stuff came together. Yep. And I hadn't seen anybody doing that. I'm not saying that nobody had. I just hadn't seen it yet.
Sure.
And I realized that in my time, I've realized that it does happens in many different kinds of ways. Yeah. But this was my first exposure to it. And there was a very smart approach to it. And there was a process that was happening there. And one of the things I enjoyed the most about it was your humbleness in that process in my first conversation. And I was like, this is something I would like to help with if I could, just in getting the message out, but maybe even like from the business development end, because I'm like, more people need to see this. And you were getting confirmation of that as well during that time. At the same time, Jake's not a dude, and I recognize this right away, who's huge on self-promotion. So I was like, okay, well, how do we kind of have a conversation about this to maybe get the word out and whatnot? It went really well. And then for the last year, it's been awesome talking about all kinds of things. And hopefully we get to talk about that a little bit today.
Yeah, definitely.
But you're out here because there's a 3-day course happening in the South Bay area here up near. So we got San Francisco, San Jose, Oakland. Those are kind of the major places. And then, as you funnel down, you're going to be out there with some of the local law enforcement guys teaching some stuff. Yep. It's a 3-day pistol carbine, right?
Yeah, man. We're I think originally some of the guys from San Jose had reached out from the last time we had taught out here. Kind of like, yo, we've seen y'all have grown. Could you come back out and hold a pistol rifle? Super excited about it. I mean, I'm sure it's gonna be a great class.
I'm sure it will be too. I'm excited to see some of my friends are going to be out there. So I'm going to get to go hang out with them and you guys and check it out. But listen, man, just kind of catching up. I'm curious just to kind of maybe talk about this publicly, just about like the process, and let's talk about it like in the last year. Yeah. With what's happened with IEP and more specifically like your own journey right through this and kind of figuring things out. Like, how do you grow? How do you scale? What were the challenges? What are the challenges? What, what did it look like to start? What did you kind of have to figure out along the way? And what are you continuing to figure out as you're growing the company? Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be hard to go back a year. Might have to go back a little further, but, because I think early on we were heavily identified on the human performance side, which I think in the last year, in that question at least, we've I don't want to say shifted focus maybe, but I think due to demand, there has been, I would say, a little bit, I don't want to say, again, I hate saying split, but I think that shift has happened a little bit on the shooting side, a little bit more, at least than I expected, right? Now, I will say that we had some people early on that were very vocal and instrumental, maybe I should say, which my boy Matt.
Right.
Matt loves
over at X-Ray Alpha.
Yep. Matt loves to give me crap about it, but he was like, hey man, dude, why are you not teaching shooting? So I appreciate that little bit of I would say little push, but maybe a bigger kick in the rear out the gate. But I think that has grown so much, man. But I think, in my opinion, at least, and obviously I'm a little bit biased, but I think we've done it in a good way to where our classes are very focused around our expertise and the team that we have and how do we continue to build that. We've over doubled in classes that we had the year before. So I think it's just been it's been very busy, as you're obviously very well aware. But for everyone else, it's kind of funny. When was that? A month, 2 months ago? Whenever everybody was like, "Hey, y'all have 7 classes this year?" And we're like,
right. Yeah.
No, we do not have 7 classes. We have 7 open enrollment. I gotta clarify that term. 7 open enrollment being to law enforcement only, whereas like a lot of people say open enrollment meaning anybody and everybody.
Right.
But no, we have. I think we're at 37. I've still booked 1 or 2 this year, recently. So, yeah, it's been a crazy year. I think a lot of learning has happened. Obviously, I think on the classes, I mean, we're everywhere. Been super fortunate to train with some pretty high level units. I say that, and I'll maybe clarify too, like high level, low level. I don't really care who they are. I just want people that are willing to train and get after it. However, out of those 37, I think we have 17 that are federal that have been closed classes that we've been able to go up and work with some units that very, very few people are getting to do. We've had some challenges with it, and kind of like, where do we fit? I think trying to find where we fit in that ecosystem between the shooting and the human performance piece. But I'm, in the last year, I am extremely confident in where we are and what we were doing and where we fit in that ecosystem.
I think that's important. Let's go back to just the demand piece. You mentioned the demand started to shift.
Yeah.
What were people coming to you for? Like when you say that demand, like what were they asking for? Was this, and let me maybe set this up a little bit, because this is what I think people think, because I know that's what I thought when I was kind of entering into like the shooting instruction piece. Like you see something happening somewhere. So YouTube, it's Instagram, or you see them working with somebody else. And like, oh, well, that's kind of been validated because they're working with this other person. That I think a lot of people enter into, oh, well, if he's working with so-and-so, then it must be good. Well, I think we know that most people know the truth in that, right? Yeah. The other piece is again, trying to find your way in, like where do I actually fit here because of who we're training and what they're doing on the job versus what maybe getting instructed on the range, like where are the pieces fit in? So I'm curious, like, what are they coming to? What were they coming to you for?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think early on we were the human performance guys. I think everybody was looking for that perfect program. Like, how do we built for special operations?
Got it.
Primarily in the law enforcement space, because military and law enforcement special operations
different, and
what the needs are different, right?
Job task analysis. Different.
And so early on, that was, I think, where we first were kind of I don't want to say put in a corner because that sounds negative, but that was our focus, right? I had a military background. I came in with a doctorate. I brought in someone who has a master's with Aaron. We went and did a lot of job task analysis. We were building human performance programs, like for a special operations unit. So that's good. I'm glad we're identified as such, right? But I think as things shifted, where things started shifting was we built the human performance lab. What we started finding, the tactical performance lab, TPL. What we started finding is the movement and shooting of like really looking down to a granular level. And the amount of times in that class I've heard, wow, how has no one done this before? We're taught how to do all these other things with the mechanics of whether it be your grip, your mount, whatever. But not on the movement side. It's just like, hey, let's go run this drill, movement and shooting. There's not like specific teaching on it. And I think early on, it seemed, to be very, very honest, coming from human performance or even a Division I football player background, it almost felt like everybody should know this. Like I very much took for granted, I think.
Like, remember when you played baseball as a kid? Right. And they're like, I never played baseball as a kid. I never played any sports.
Dude, 100%. Like we did. There was just so much learning that had to happen. And I'm really glad. One of the things I am really proud of, I get a lot of calls from people in the human performance space that will reach out and be like, dude, we love, that's so cool what you're doing. How do we do that? And I tell them,
like they're trying to break in.
Yeah, they're trying to break in. And every time what I tell them, dude, out the gate, get out there, volunteer your time to learn more about that job and what they're doing. And I think that's really hard for people to do with a doctorate, master's, et cetera, that you spent so much time being a subject matter expert. But the problem is you're an expert, maybe, if you're a Division I football strength and conditioning coach, but that does not directly apply over the special operations side. And so I think early on, we did a really good job of saying, hey, let's pilot this. Let's find out, let's understand before we ever charge anybody a dime. And I think through that process, though, it opened a lot of doors. I think we grew the reputation and the relationships that were needed at the same time of really developing our curriculum. So went from these human performance guys to, I think, hey, how do we apply all that human performance so there's a continuum from what you do in the gym onto the range? And I think that then, again, guys like Matt, who really spoke into Matt, there was a lot of other guys. I was super fortunate because I think that the movement side was something that was new and a lot of people were interested, at least, whether they believed in it or not. I do think they did, but at least initially, that you had guys like Mark Smith, Mike Pannone, Scott Jadlinski, Matt Pranka, Jared Clausen. I was super Joe Farewell. I'm sure there's other guys, so I'm really apologetic.
There's a distinguished list there for
but
sure.
I have been extremely fortunate to go shoot with dudes and get one-on-one time to teach movement stuff, but then hear their thoughts, feedbacks, good, bad, ugly, learn, but then also have a very cool opportunity to ask them questions about shooting, because that was not my specific skill set. I was infantry in the Army, but I didn't do anything cool. So I'll get that out there. I feel like everybody gets shit about that. But I was just an infantry guy in the Army. Like, I didn't do anything cool. I didn't shoot that much. But I was super fortunate to go train with these guys one-on-one and learn so much about the shooting process, which, funny story, I think the process was something that was very interesting to me. You see all these guys that Ben Steger has a great process, like his books he puts out. All the good shooters have a process. It's not just go sling as many bullets as they can. One of the places I found that I used my doctorate was process. Because if I look at somebody's shoulder and you say, owie, my shoulder hurts, it could be, there's so many different things that I have to go then test. Is it muscular? Is it the capsule? Is it the biomechanics of the movement? Is it the joint? There's so many different things, right? And then go look at that process. This is where it hurts. This is what it doesn't hurt. This is how we strengthen. It's a whole process. So I think when I started looking at the shooting, it was very interesting to me. I just looked at all these little things as variables. Fortunately, I was training with some of the best shooters in the world.
So you're almost able to shortcut.
You know what I mean? And so I'm asking I'm super fortunate to have like one-on-one direct line of communication with these guys. I do think I'm very fortunate and was able to expedite that process quickly. You can ask any of those guys. I've asked them some really stupid questions. Like, I just didn't know any better and I just wanted to understand. And so I would ask any questions. And I do think I'm fortunate. I'm confident enough in myself to, if I have a question, I'm going to ask it. And if you're like, you're an idiot, I'm be like, you are correct. However, can you still help me with this? And so I do think, but I think that there's the availability to information, which I think now, especially with social media, a lot of people have a lot of access to information. But the second piece is to go do it.
Right.
To spend the time, put the rounds, dry fire, et cetera, right? And so I think through that process, it was kind of like, okay, well, we've got the movement piece figured out. I shouldn't say figured out, very refined. But then the shooting piece started coming more and more and more. And I think between Matt and then I had I had a federal unit that was like, hey man, we would like a 2-day rifle. And I remember specifically, I was like, that's not what we do. And he was like, this is how much we're going to pay somebody. And I was like, I'll figure it out. And that was, I think, kind of my first introduction to like, hey man, let's go shoot this rifle and like put on a good class. Now, we still tailored all of our classes, even if we're doing any shooting at all, it's always got a movement because that is what we're the experts in. Like JJ Rakaza, we've had some great conversations. He and I got on calls, talked about movement as it pertains to shooting, but we approach it differently. I really bring my background from the education side and the human performance piece. And JJ actually has gone through, I can't remember the course he sent, but he has gone through some formal education as well. But then one of the best competition shooters of all time, pretty good at movement. Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good, some would say. And so we approach it different ways, but it was really cool to get on a call and we've discussed this of kind of the tactical and the competition. I don't want to go on a deep path on that, but they are different, right? There is a known movement where you can walk a stage, and I don't mean that in negative connotation whatsoever. They're just different. Whereas on the tactical side, you may know but more than likely you don't know what the next action is going to be. And so really looking at it from the human performance or the athletic side, I want to say, but that really allowed us to dive in and just kind of find our niche area. And I think identify who we were in the industry. And honestly, man, I look at the year, as we've kind of just developed, we over doubled the classes. We're in some, I would argue, some pretty high level units in the federal government, that we're working with. I know we were talking offline, but like the story is one that's always been funny in my mind, at least, of we do with Magpul, they do their I cannot remember the name. You know what I'm talking about, the little side stories they do. So if you go on the main Magpul, I want to say it's comms, something like that. But anyway, they have their main part of the website that sells all the products, and then they have this story platform.
Okay.
Essentially, a couple of years ago, we had just gotten started. We were doing some cool stuff. We had worked with a lot of government agencies, but nothing like on a big scale. And I made the comment in there that, hey, we were working with some of the 3-letter agencies, and the best hater comment of all time, which I know I'll tell you this offline, I still think it's hilarious. It was like, yeah, the only guys these guys are working with is IRS and the ATF. And I was like, damn, hater.
Yeah, but lesson learned.
Lesson learned. Yeah. But I think that we have advanced past that. We're working with some pretty cool dudes. But at the same time, man, I traveled up to Canada, working with some of the federal teams up there. We're working with a lot of local teams, a lot of state teams. I truly just enjoy teaching. Like, whoever wants to get out and train, like, let's go. And I think that through that, the opportunity we've had this year of 37 classes, and we could have easily hit 40 if we wanted, but that class, that TPL, to now a 2-day pistol or 2-day rifle, a 3-day pistol rifle, all these different things. Dude, it's crazy. No class is the same. How much this material has advanced, it is just beyond what I ever thought we would, be at.
So a couple of things that come up for me here is, one is you mentioned like the movement piece being new, and that being maybe how it was delivered, because the way I look at it is like when I was going to, I've gone to a lot of classes and they're talking about movement. So in that sense, it's not that movement isn't been happening or people haven't been trying to figure it out. When you look at like the competition versus the quote unquote tactical side and what's happening in these different, I guess, situations or environments, maybe is a better way to look at it. Well, people have been moving for a long time.
Absolutely.
And I think people recognize that obviously that's important. And you see the guy, some of the stories you hear is, my favorite story ever is John Dufresne, right? When he talks about the first time he went out to, and if you don't know who John Dufresne is, Kinetic Concepts, you should go check that out. John's an amazing dude, amazing shooter, amazing coach, just a solid human. So that's my plug for John. Love that dude. But that said, his first time out in competition, coming out of the military, doing some pretty high level stuff. His story is he got up there on the line and there was a little old lady with literally a Marlboro cigarette hanging off of her bottom lip and smoked him. Right. Yeah. And that's a common tale, right? That we hear from folks that think they have an ability that then gets exposed when they move into these different environments and so forth. Not that the little old lady with the Marlboro hanging off of her bottom lip would have done well in his environment, but he was not doing well there. Yep. And he saw that obviously movement was important. She's floating around out there doing her stuff. Like, so movement matters, and movement is not new in the sense as it relates to, in the larger sense as it relates to shooting in any kind of environment. The point there being is that the way people were talking about it, that's where I saw disconnect. Is that you know what you're doing here, right? You know how you're doing it here, but may not have a deeper level understanding of how that actually happens physiologically and things that you can do to get better. You know what you did to get better, right? Or you learned that from somebody else and, you've talked about it because it helped you or whatever, but there's still a deeper underlying miss or disconnect, or let's just say like a deficiency in, like, there are some specifics that maybe if we articulate this a little bit better to people and they can put that into their training on the range or training in the gym, they could improve greatly on all things, both the movement and the shooting. And then obviously the shooting comes up, and which is where you're like, well, we need to explore this more and find out how it fits into our stuff.
Well, and I tell you too on that, like I've got a good story. A very respected unit, a very, very, very respected unit. We were recommended to them about going and doing the shooting and movement class. Guy was really nice to me via email. He was like, hey man, I'll get on a call with you. We set up a time. Cool. We get on a call and This dude, I love this dude. Really, he is a very nice guy, but he is probably one of the more direct humans that I know.
Okay.
And
I think I know who you're talking about. So
yeah, we get on this call and he's like, hey man, appreciate your time. Went and looked at your site. I'm going to be honest. I don't think we need you. We've got human performance team here at our facility and we bring in world champion shooters. What can you bring? And I remember sitting there and I was like, gosh, damn. Like we had just said, hello, how are you? Like I didn't know him at that time. Mm-hmm. And I feel like his reaction is what the community was where we were. Is there was like all this movement, like go do that in your gym. You've got human performance people, you've got world-class shooters. And I appreciate the intro. I do kind of feel like maybe to a fault sometimes, but I'm very careful with the words I choose usually, or I try to be. And specifically towards myself, I'd say sometimes a little hard on myself. That said, in this moment, I could tell his personality. I was like, you know what? I'm going to send it. Like this guy
is a no bullshit dude.
Yeah,
right?
This dude is not wanting me to be like humble or anything like that. And so I just fired back. I was like, sir, I will tell you straight up right now. You give me 2 days and you will learn something that you have not heard before.
I can appreciate that. Yeah.
And he literally, he was like, you know what? I appreciate the confidence. I'll give you a 2-day tryout. And then, so far this year, we've taught for them 7 times. So I would say that it worked its way out, and been super fortunate. Really enjoyed working with them. But I think that that's kind of where we were. Is like, I think early on we were trying to figure out where do we fit in this ecosystem, right? Mm-hmm. And I felt like they actually, that pressure testing, again, I've been super fortunate to train with a lot of guys. One of the things within IEP, obviously, you know this, a lot of people don't, but whenever we have instructors, once they teach, I believe it's 5, if I recall, mm-hmm. when we put in the SOPs, you teach 5 or plus classes, we send you to a class mm-hmm. because we value going outside and learning continuously. Yep. Because I think it's important that we are continuing to grow ourselves as shooters, but then how do we articulate that information, right? And then how do we make sure, because we teach, I one of the comments, I don't fully agree with this, but I've heard many people say like, you know, shooting hasn't changed in 20 years. You just got to put the bullets where you're aiming kind of concept, right?
Fundamentally, it hasn't.
Yeah, like right. I get what you're saying, but I think you're missing a lot of things here, right?
There's been a lot of evolution.
So, yeah, 100%.
You can't say that and then go, well, then if nothing has changed, then why are things happening so much faster?
Right,
People are more accurate.
That's a way oversimplifying the conversation. But that said, I feel like as guys talk about different shooting instructors, it's like, yeah, but what do you bring different? Which I do think is maybe some of the beef or the frustration with other instructors in the industry. It's like, well, that's just for show. You're just trying to be different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me because, and I think it comes from a lot of different places. There's the jealousy piece, like somebody being successful out there. There is the dismissive piece of, well, this dude's never done the job or doesn't know what he's doing. You know, he's not a world-class shooter. So automatically this is a non-conversation because he hasn't quote unquote qualified by my standard or whatever. And then I think the other piece is just a misunderstanding, like doesn't truly know. You haven't trained with that person. You've only heard through third or fourth party information, whatever. It's like, yeah, it gets a little convoluted. I mean, that's kind of how I got, that's why I started asking the same questions you were having and started going to the direct sources and going, 100%. Hey man, I know shit about shit here. Like, so, but I know how to ask questions and I promise I won't waste your time with asking the next level question. If you can just get me past this one part, I think I know where to go with this kind of thing. So.
Dude, and I think a lot of the guys respect that and appreciate like, hey, I am trying to take it to a deeper level. They want to see that commitment, I would say.
Yes.
But going back to kind of what we're saying, I think sometimes people get frustrated with one another. There is definitely the jealousy, but I also just think that dude, that's just, you don't need that. That's a marketing tool. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that sometimes get kicked in. I think that we've been super fortunate on what we're doing. I think you made a great call earlier that I will echo. There's a lot of people that have had movement in their shooting courses. Like we did not create movement.
Right.
However, I think we've done a very good job of hyper-focusing on the movement, how to do the movement at a higher level. Now with that, I do think has come shooting as well. Because again, kind of going back to Matt, I think early on, I just saw myself as like, hey guys, don't just focus on the movement piece, right? And he was kind of like, dude,
don't get out of your lane.
What are you doing? Well, no. Matt didn't say, that's how I was. Correct.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's how I was. And I think Matt was kind of like, actually, well, his words were a lot meaner, but he said, don't be an idiot. Actually, again, his was worse. But in a nutshell, it was like, dude, no, you need to be teaching shooting. And I think even then, I'm not trying to dig too deep into what he said, but I think looking back on it, knowing what I know now, it's like, yeah, that's a really important piece because that has opened up so much about what we do and understanding the vision, the biomechanics, the movement, all the pieces, even at the upper half of the body, where I think early on we focused on the lower half of the body, but now it's like, yeah, but how does that impact your vision? How does a lower body impact your vision, your processing speed visually versus mechanically? Like there's so many pieces, and hey, lo and behold, I understand anatomy physiology pretty well. I just spent a lot of time in neuro, biomechanics, a lot of different things. A lot of other guys haven't. And so through that, I do think it's allowed me to kind of nerd out. And there's pieces that are very applicable to when we teach. And there's pieces that, although that it's not appropriate to teach maybe in the class, it's very helpful for me to know and understand how to do that, to then be able to articulate information maybe differently, how the student does need to know it. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I mean, again, I'm an idiot, and I have my career experience has been in coaching, and coaching. So I do understand.
Yeah, I know you.
Human physiology and anatomy. Yeah. So I'm just saying that just from a relevance perspective is there's a lot of things I know and I would like to tell somebody and get somebody to be able to do. Right. But I also again, just without patting myself on my own back, I think I'm pretty good at understanding where somebody is currently based on a lot of things. Yeah. Based on reviewing the history, based on observation, based on doing some testing, right? You can call it evaluation, testing, assessment, whatever you want to call it. Right. To then be in a place to go, like, here's the information that's important now. And while I would like them to get there, and they might not even know that they want to get there yet, if I lay down the right groundwork, we will open the doors or the pathways to potentially being able to do this. If this client, this person that I'm in front of puts in the work and has a certain level of ability to do that, right? And there's a lot of things that come into that. So no, I do understand that. So the point being is, like, there is an underlying, knowledge there of a lot of things that may not ever come out in a class or a course or in a Instagram post, for Christ's sakes, or something like that that set you up to be able to have those conversations. And I think it's fair to not expect that everybody's going to know that, right? And so the only way to really know it is to kind of get the experience and then kind of go, oh, that guy said some stuff that I don't really understand right now, but I see it in application. And so there's something to this. This goes back to leading the horses to the trough, right? Yeah. And to the water. They may not be ready to drink it yet, and that's okay. And I'm not trying to force you to drink anything you're not ready to drink right now. Yep. But if I can just, again, going back to the classes continually evolve, or the class is different every time, it's like, who am I standing in front of and what can I actually do?
It's funny to you too, as I'm listening to that, and I'm thinking something that's interesting to me. The putting out information and one, how it's evolved, but two, social media to a class. Mm-hmm. I think that, shout out to Chris Qua, love the guy, obviously. He has crushed it on our social media. He does all of our content capture, putting it out. He's done amazing. But I think Chris sometimes early on was kind of like, Jake, you're way too far, guy.
Dial it back.
Because I wanted to give all the perfect information on social media so we could put out as much free stuff as we could. Thank goodness for him. He was like, hey, we got to bring it back. You got to give him small pieces, et cetera, et cetera. However, and I say that he was right, I was wrong, is what I'm saying. But we have gotten so much feedback, especially this year, from people in classes that are like, dude.
In classes.
Yes, in classes, that they're like, bro, they will thank us for our social media, because I do genuinely think they appreciate that we put out information. We're not entertainment. Because I'm paraphrasing, but that's how I perceive when they say that. But they're like, dude, what you're talking about in class is the depth of it. Is so much deeper, which I do appreciate. That's what I would prefer to have happen. That said, as we have grown this year, I realize we are just going deeper. And
it's tough.
Oh man,
it's like finding a balance.
And so then you're trying to like catch up a little bit on social media to be able to put out the quote unquote right information. You know what I'm saying?
No, I do know.
Whereas like, I feel like it's almost like you're always like, blasting forward, and you're like, oh shoot, we got to catch that up too.
It's the same thing, like just on the other side of the house with the podcast. Like when we could go, like my team could go very deep into some concepts, and occasionally we do on the podcast because we have the long form to do that. But what I've recognized is the feedback that we get is what people are taking away from whatever we provide, whether it's a little higher level, a little deeper level. Most people at whatever stage that they're in. That's the most, and that's who I'm trying to hit. There's certainly, if you want to attack that 1%er, like, well, then you need to prepare and curate and whatever that content in that kind of way, and just understand that that's who you're talking to, and the other 99% probably aren't going to get it, or they might be trying to and following you, and maybe they get there. But the point of that being is like you have to put out, it's a little bit of crowd work, right?
Yeah,
to try to get people to understand what it is at some level, and then again, if you want more, the real information is going to come in the in-person stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, that's marketing, but it's also like, I also recognize my limitations here in putting out too much and having to dial it back. I've definitely gone through that myself.
I was going to say,
especially with all, like you said, all the other information that's out there with other people that are doing a great job doing it. Like
it's a trial and error. Like you just don't know until you see the success or not success from like the company, but how people respond and react, and then what you're giving them, the feedback. Exactly. It has just been interesting as we've grown, continually growing on the social media side. Yes, but definitely in the classes. I think where we have the opportunity to go deep. But all the pressure testing, and some of it's just from how often we're teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever someone calls us with I think some of the places we're going to teaching that have a little bit better funding, have good ideas. They're like, well, hey, can you do this? And you're like, I don't know, but if you're paying me to do it, then I'll figure it out.
So let me time you out on that for just a second, because that's an interesting thing, because now you're in a place, IEP's in a place, or you're an instructor and you're in a place where somebody who's asking you for something that is sort of outside your curriculum a little bit, right?
Yep.
Not that the subject matter is completely outside your curriculum,
right.
but the specifics that they're asking for are a little bit out, because, well, if this guy can help me here, or this team can help me with this specific thing, I wonder what that might look like over here, because we feel like we have some deficiencies here and we could really use some support or some guidance over here. And so that's not I came up with a different class because I needed something to market and sell.
Yeah. That
was a request. And this is where I was going back to the demand and what people are asking you for, and the connection that they're making to it, right?
Right.
It's wow, this stuff makes sense to me, and I'm starting to understand it more after class 5, right? Or whatever of the 7. It started as 1. Oh, this is pretty good. Let's do this again and again and again, right? And we're at 7 classes now. Now it's like, we're seeing our people evolve. We're seeing this course evolve. We're seeing these instructors evolve in terms of how they're delivering this information. And now we see how this could be implemented in this other application, whatever it is, right? And so that gives you an opportunity to then explore things in this exact same process, right? Which is what I appreciate or appreciated when we started talking about this. I was like, whoa, where are we going with this? And in a couple of, without giving specific examples, like there were some people asking for some things. I'm like, is that really what IEP does? And then I'm thinking about it going, it's a fucking rifle. It's a pistol, right? Now there is some application with what distances you might be working out with optics and, different configurations of weapon systems and things like that. But let's just leave all of that off the table. What are we really talking about here?
See, so that's actually kind of a good, maybe not a dovetail, but
because I think people do the other thing. I need something different.
So I agree. I think that's something, again, I'm also really proud of. Listen, we've been asked to teach some class. We've been asked to teach a handful of classes that there's been multiple that I've turned down and said, listen, unless I believe that we can be experts at that, and I have someone on our team that is their lane, they are the expert and they can teach it, we're not going to do that. Additionally, like you're saying, a lot of people listening do not know a handful of classes that we teach currently at different levels in the government. But it's because they are like, hey, can you do this? And another thing I'll say, anytime that's happened, I've said, here's what we will do. You pay me for the 3 days that I know that I can do, and that 4th day, let me come in and pilot it. Before you pay me for it, I want to know that I can do it at a very high level. And there's been multiple things that we in our team have taken extra time to train and be maybe not the experts, but expert enough to be able to go and teach it at a very high level. I believe that we are the experts at shooting and moving. Strong statement. I will make it. I think that we've done a very good job of how that information is articulated at a very high level from the human performance, how it impacts the shooting. And I believe we're very good shooters and can also articulate shooting at a very high level. That said, to see where it has dovetailed in the different opportunities has been really cool. That said, I think the reason, and kind of where you started to make a comment that really spurred me here was we're really good at shooting. And I think we articulate that information really well. And I think we're really good at movement and we articulate that information really well. And I think that's something that's really important. We're not trying to build fluff.
We're not the best at both necessarily, but putting it together.
We're not the best at both by any means. I also though think that what is the best at both? That's the
question I was going to ask.
That's super subjective. And I think that there's people that are really good at some things. And I'll say right now, like myself and some of our guys we've trained some really good shooters. And when we run drills or whatever that may be, it's not like everybody's just getting dusted all the time. I think that there's a lot of shooters that are good at maybe certain things and less so at others. And there are some really good shooters that are not as good at moving really aggressive and shooting, at whatever
equally
that may be,
aggressively
right?
and accurately.
I'm not knocking anybody by any means. I'm just saying, I think that the ability to shoot at a very high level, you have to understand the fundamentals and you have to be able to, I don't agree that you have to be able to articulate them, because what I found is there are some instructors that are really, really good at shooting that are not really, really good at teaching.
It's been my experience too.
Those are two very different things. And as much as everybody wants to say you must be able to do and teach, I think that you definitely need to be able to do at some level and teach. But I do think as an instructor group, we shoot very well.
Yeah, this is the case in any other endeavor, right? When it comes to teaching people in coaching levels, you want to know and you want to see that the person that you're listening to this information from has had some successes. But what are those successes, and exactly what does that need to be for me to be able to qualify this? Yep. And I think again, that's a very subjective thing, right?
It is very subjective.
And just because the person is a multi-trillionaire doesn't necessarily mean they're good at managing business and managing finance, whatever. Doesn't necessarily mean they're the best coach. They may be a really good manager. And
it gives you a very. I don't want this to come off as like we're the best shooters in the world. I'm not saying that. I think that there's some people with some.
I don't think you have to
letters
be.
After. I agree, but I also I guess want to clarify. I also think that having a national, world, whatever championship after your name, shooting wise, gives me a really solid starting point of where you are. Right.
I agree 100%.
But it is not the end all be all, and I'm not knocking any competition shooter, same as Millsoft or anything like that. I've been super fortunate to train with all of them, just like a lot of guys are. Like I'm not the only one. I'm just saying that is a starting point, like just a reference point, like everybody, right? But there is Preston, like there's a guy on our team that is I'm using his words, not mine, a nobody on a part-time SWAT team that very few people on this podcast will ever have heard of. And I'll tell you right now, he has gone and taught at some of the highest levels in the government. And as a shooting a gun and movement, dusted everybody.
Right.
He has no national championships. He has like nothing cool after his name.
He's a busy guy. Yeah.
But that dude is he's just quiet. Nobody knows him, but he is willing to put in the time. He's obsessed with his craft. And I think that, again, that's why some of those things are starting points or reference points, but it's not the end all be all. Now, I'm not discouraging or minimizing anybody's accomplishments at whatsoever, just to be super clear there. But it's just been interesting. I think the more opportunities we've gotten to train, it's been a lot of fun just growing and learning from amazing shooters and instructors around the world.
I think that's definitely an advantage of being in front of some of the higher level people that have gone through their own journeys. Obviously, they're not in the beginning stages, and they've been selected for whatever positions on whatever teams they happen to be on, because they do have a high amount of drive and they do take things very seriously, and they may be competing and trying to balance all the things, and have found themselves at a position, around other guys that, or other folks that are the same, as them. And so when you get into those environments and you're in that, I would refer to that as in that room, the opportunity for growth is exponential, right? On every end. And so just going back, I mean, you mentioned Preston, just maybe in talking about the team and the evolution there, because what I saw when I came in was a kind of a collective of guys, and there's a nucleus of them. You mentioned one of them.
Yep.
They've kind of been there from the get-go. There's two things that come up for me here. One, are highly accomplished in their own right at the thing that they do. And in terms of, and when I say this word again, I think I got to be careful with it, but as qualified, right? To teach certain things, but there's a qualification process that comes through IEP to maybe talk about that. But it was a collective of guys that were all coming from the same page, and there was a certain level of structure there, but that structure has been way more refined. And so there's been an onboarding of like, you got 37 classes. Is Jake the one out there teaching everything, right? Is he the one that's teaching all of these different things? And the answer to that question is no, right? But it didn't start that way. It started with Jake teaching everything and then being able to hand down what he learned from maybe those relationships and those different institutions, if you will, and bring them back to the team. So there's a team. There's a team here of some very accomplished people in their own right. Now, again, how you maybe evaluate those accomplishments, how would you do that? And one of the most public things and easy things to do is, again, go back to like, well, is this guy a grandmaster shooter or not? You know, like if that's your litmus, if that is the qualifier, you choose that. That's fine. I'm not judging you. That's what it is. But the team is made up of some very specific types of people, and there's a way of recruiting those people. There's a way of developing those people. There's a way of making sure that they're being set up for success in the environments outside of where they've already been successful. Maybe we talk about the team a little bit, because I think that's one of the most impressive things that I've seen get done, and where I think a lot of it, instructors that may be the person, a good friend of ours, Mark Smith, like he's the guy, right? Like if you go to a JBS class, you're getting Mark, and that's what people go for. And that's the way he structured his business. He loves doing it, and he's extraordinarily good at it in my own experience. And I think a lot of people would agree with me.
Absolutely.
But then there's other teams of folks out there, guys that come to mind that are sort of popular right now. I mean, initially we saw like Fieldcraft was just getting so huge, and they had all these instructors, right? And they were kind of taking the world by storm, call it, 6-7 years ago or however long ago it was. And you've seen things evolve. Then you saw other groups kind of come to the table. There's a group out there now that I'm super interested in and have been watching and talking with a little bit, and that's the Hades Consulting Group and what they're doing specifically with who they're working with, and they're growing a team of people. And I just saw the other day, I think it was yesterday actually, that Charlie was kind of putting out some stuff on his team, but it's tough because those people are kind of laying low in the background. They don't want to be in the front of the business. They want to be doers in the business that are helping the business grow and contributing, and they're doing that at a very high level. Yet they are not being publicized so much because they don't want to be. And I think that's okay. So I think that's very similar. That particular situation or example is very similar to kind of how IEP is done this as well, is that it's been bringing together a group of people that they're fine, not being, the in the front. However, there's a very strong connection by each of them to contribute to the whole and making sure that they're staying. There's a level of accountability there. There's a level of contribution there. And I just wonder, maybe just talking through that, like how has that kind of come together and where is it at this point?
Yeah, there's a lot there. When we started building the team, Preston and Sal were absolutely the front runners. Obviously Aaron, but from the shooting side at least, Preston and Sal. You want to talk about stupid questions? They got the brunt of them. That was where
from you mean?
Oh yeah, from me. Yeah. Those guys are saints. Like they helped me a lot and allowed me to ask a lot of stupid questions.
On which parts? Like, give me an example. Like on the
shooting side. Like, I look back. I don't think I was a bad shooter when I first started teaching. I don't think I was a bad shooter, dangerous, anything like that. I just did not know what I was doing. Like I could not articulate anything. It was pick gun up, shoot gun.
And you could do that.
Right. I could do it. And even that, it was okay. It wasn't anything special. And I don't know if I say I'm special now, but I can shoot pretty well. But back then it was like, I had just no context to the world of shooting. Didn't know who anybody was. Even when I was on like social media, still no context. Whereas like those guys had taken a lot of classes. They had a lot of years shooting. They could articulate the information. They were good shooters, but they were also good instructors.
They'd heard it articulated from other people.
So I would ask them questions where I just remember like, especially Preston, where I was just like, I look back now and I'm like, oh dude, if you went back in that thread, there would be some good ones. You know what I mean? But, so those two early on just really helped develop the curriculum. And I think that early on, I still, even back then, I did teach all the classes where they would sometimes split or, one or the other. And so I've taught more than anybody else. With that though, I think what was difficult for me and started getting frustrating was I felt like I was being pushed out in front which I do understand. I started the company, and this is somewhat my baby, but there's a lot of people who have been involved in this. And I think that's the thing for me where I was like, no, what about those guys too, you know? Because without them, this course probably would be very different. We pressure tested, we talked through, we went through a lot of that information to really try to refine it. Flipping all the way back to a comment you made with some of the units we're with now of being in the room, I think is a comment you made.
Mm-hmm.
I was an outsider. I was, and I am an outsider in the sense of like, I'm not law enforcement. I'm not anything special. So when I'm brought in, I think now I'm comfortable in the skin of like, hey, he's just like the specialist at this one thing. So bring him in. He's the instructor, and it's like, let's go. I very much know my role, and that's the expectation that they hold on me, right? Whereas I think early on, it was kind of like, dude, I'm just an outsider guy. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, let's just hope for the best here kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, interesting.
And I think it was a lot of, that's why early on, it was so important to me. Before we started charging anybody money, we had the Prestons and the Sals that, hey, does this seem like this is going in the right direction? Or is this just straight bullshit that like because I'm coming from an education background. Like this makes sense on paper and I can do a job task analysis. I have watched more CQB than probably a lot of people from a lot of teams because early on, I just wanted to understand. So if anybody gave me an opportunity to watch, I just wanted to watch it because I wanted to understand the movements. I wanted to understand tubular assaults versus open air engagements. Like whatever I could see, like I wanted to learn. That said, though, it's very different from, and this is not how you meant it, but being in the room as an officer, operator, whatever you want to call them, right? That's why it was important to me to have some of those guys on the team in the corner so that we were still going in the right direction. From that, I think that, man, it's shocking to me of how lucky I got to land on those two guys right out the gate. Because knowing what I know now, they are anomalies. To where now the team we've built, I'm very appreciative for the people that have reached out that want to train with us and or try out to be an instructor with us. It's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we hold very high standards, and I'm super fortunate, super blessed of the guys that have come in that have helped us set those. But now the team's growing. So it's like, okay, well, what do we need in place? Like, how do we grow that team to keep that same quality, right? And I think that, as you said, it's not an easy thing. We're still doing it. I think we've grown to probably around 15. And fun fact, sure, let's do it. We're gonna hold a tryout later this year, and I think we're gonna put it out to see if anybody wants to apply to it. I don't know if I should put this out on here.
I think it's good. You're answering the question that I wanted you to answer, and that is just the process and kind of how things grow.
Yeah.
I think it's a couple important notes here that maybe you left out. That is that right now, all of them are law enforcement.
Yep.
All of them work on, they're on a SWAT team somewhere. Whether that's part-time or full-time.
Yep.
So these are veteran folks. They have all come through sort of a referral process.
Yep.
Right. And so that's what makes what you just said much different. And that's why I think you're probably a little bit anxious or nervous about putting it out there is that this isn't just any Tom, Dick, and Harry that wants to kind of come. It's not what it is just to fulfill a class schedule. It's about having the right people in the right places. And that's what I've watched you be very discerning about, and the process and kind of onboarding people so that they understand, like, what are the expectations here? Who do we need? What do we need? But also being open to, I'm not really sure, but let's check this out. I'll give you an opportunity and, to look at this material and come shoot with us so that we can see and experience. And so can you, what's going on there. And then there's also the fitting into the team dynamic, right? And how do we play the strengths and weaknesses here? And I think you've done a really good job of finding a role for everybody, regardless of where they are in their journey, and matching them up with the right people to help each person, whether it's the better shooter with the better teacher, right? Sure. And put them together so that they can both play off one another, and the close supervision that happens along with that. And then the camaraderie, I think that exists there. And those are things that are a little bit esoteric in terms of the camaraderie side of things. But I think there is a connection to all that. And I think any good team would say, we get that. But I think it's important, like, again, because you keep talking about you're the outsider coming in, you've done a really good job of surrounding yourself and gaining trust from people that are on the inside.
Right.
And that was impressive to me because I don't know that there's a lot of folks that can do that. Now, I know there's a lot of instructors. I mentioned one, Mark, as an example, who has gained an enormous amount of trust from inside the institution of law enforcement, not a law enforcement guy. But he puts himself in the room with those folks to understand certain things better and asks questions, asks for feedback, asks for critical, criticism on what he's doing and how does this work and how can I be better at doing this, and constantly testing it. And so that's been an interesting thing for me to watch in the growth of the team, so that as the class schedule grows, there is not a diminishing quality of what's being, it's actually the opposite. And even in this last year and what I've watched there in terms of how things continually get refined and the contributions that the people on the team are making to that refinement process. It's not this is the way we do it, guys, and you have to do it this way.
Dude, I mean, I'm literally sitting here thinking about it. We literally had the class we've taught all year. We've taught this class quite a few times this year. We go to a class to teach a federal firearms instructor group, and immediately the next week, I think me, Bruce, and Josh, and then we immediately the next week flew back out to another federal joint training. Josh, we finished the class, and I'm like, hey guys, we were just debriefing, and Josh was like, dude, I just think we need to bring a little more movement in there. And like, I'm not kidding when I say over a weekend, I was like, you know what? It had been something kind of bugging me a little bit. And I was like, let's just try it. We pivoted on a weekend and came in with a class, and by far the best class we ever had. Like Josh was but I appreciated his confidence and just like desire. He gives a shit. Therefore, to speak up and be like, hey man, I think we need to modify this. And it was like, dude, I think you're right. And the group of guys we've built, I really, they've had a big impact in my life. And I cannot thank them all enough. And I think I think what we've built is, again, that's why I think sometimes it's a little frustrating. It's not a Jake thing by any means. I think I am the face of it sometimes, but the team has built and refined and continue to put effort into all of this stuff. Right. And it makes it a lot of fun to continue to grow. And I think that's why, to me, is like, there's no ending point. There's no ending in sight. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just always going to be refined. And how do we do it better? How do we continue to grow? That's why all of us go out to courses. We all continue to talk. That instructor group growing just makes it more exciting, right?
Yeah, I think the other part of that, I mean, we were just talking about how they're all active in whatever team they happen to be on and whatever capacity they're on. The other thing is there's a handful of guys in there with exercise science degrees and previous coaching experience at NC2A or whatever level that do understand the movement piece. It's not just these really good shooters that you were able to teach to move better or were already moving really great. They've all gotten better in their own right, but at the same time, just as grown as individuals, grown as a team, grown as individuals, but there's a level of expertise that exists that's underlying that they'll get when they're in front of him, right? But they're probably not going to hear about otherwise. But that's part of this kind of the selection process, and I don't think that's different than other teams do. They're looking for like, hey, who is this guy that did this very specific thing in this very specific unit in this very specific point in their career, and how do they bring those expertise? That's no different. But when we're talking about the movement piece, and we're talking about, again, the roots of what IEP is and bringing movement and shooting together, that's important. And those things do exist there. And so, so when you're looking at the human performance programming, how that ties into the shooting instruction, because it does, what you have is a foundation of not, we tried this and it worked, so that's what we're going to do.
Right.
There's always a little bit of that, right? But at the same time, it's coming from a deeper foundation of, like, again, people talk about like, well, you got in this engagement and you bad guy died, you went home. Is that equal success? Like, how successful? Well, at some level, yes, it equals success, but how did it get done? And what were the rooms, where's the room for improvement, and what could we have done differently? it's the same premise here in looking at how do we deliver this information to quote unquote the masses and who is our audience and who's doing it. And it makes it very tough, I think, on like the going back to that word marketing side of things. And how do you deliver information to people so that they kind of get it, but without going too deep and confusing people?
My other thing with the team that we've built is that how we have tried to recruit people, and some of us we've tried to recruit. Some of people have been up to this point. They've all had to be referred or been a referral or had somebody that's vouched for them. But all of them, our thing has been, this kind of goes back to like, who's qualified? Well, our first thing was like, who are you as a human?
Right. You got to be a good dude.
And I know you mentioned like team dynamics and more so. And again, I'm just going to simplify that a little bit. Not meaning that someone who is, doesn't fit in our culture is a bad person. I don't mean like that. I'm just saying, if you're not a good human, the human element, you won't be involved. Like, and so that was an easy identifier for us early out the gate for anybody who's wanting to be a shooting instructor for us. I think from there, I think performance is very important, right? Because we demo everything in front of a class, and demos are not easier.
They matter.
They very much matter. They're easy to mess up. It takes a lot of practice, skill, and to be able to perform on demand in that moment in front of a class of whatever it is you're trying to articulate and show the student. I tell you, one of the things, I think a lot of people are impressed by Ben Steger, rightfully so.
Yep.
But one of the things that I remember from his class that I was, I don't want to say most impressed with, there was a lot of things, but one of them was he demos right and he demos wrong. And I remember back at that point in my career, I didn't understand enough of how maybe sometimes difficult it is to do it wrong. Mm-hmm. I kind of saw it and you're like, oh yeah, I mean, he's just doing what he sees everybody do. But now as an instructor, you demo things wrong. I don't think people understand. Like,
it feels weird, right?
Exactly. Like especially as someone who is pretty proficient, to be able to have to go back and forth on good, bad, ugly is not as easy as people think. So anyway, all to say, you have to be able to perform, be able to performance wise as a shooter. And then the last one, and this is another one that, again, I just got wicked lucky with Preston and Sal and then the other guys we brought in. You have to be able to teach. And that's one that I feel like is wildly undervalued. Mm-hmm. There are people that are very, very, very good shooters. And there's some people that have very, very, very decorated resumes that cannot teach. And I think that is, again, something that we've tried to put emphasis on. And when we teach a class that, yeah, man, straight up, when we teach a class, what I want to hear is that is the best, most perfect class I have ever been to in my life.
Sure. I think that's a good,
right? Like I want it to be just blow their socks off, right? Mm-hmm. Not going to happen. Frankly, I don't feel like it should. I feel like everybody should be thinking critically whenever they go through the class. And if you believe, or if you agree with me 100% on everything, I question whether you're thinking critically. That said, I want that feedback, right? However, I think in a realistic world, maybe is a better way. I think that I hope that whenever IEP leaves from teaching any class, myself or any other instructor, that man, that was a professional group of instructors that genuinely care. Now, obviously I want them to be like, dude, they shot lights out, but that's one of our qualifications. So it's not one of my concerns, mm-hmm. right? That said, I think that I think we've done a good job of that. I also think that what I've come to find, in my opinion, at least, those people that are genuinely good humans that also are taking the time to perform at a very high level and teach anywhere, whether it be at their department to in the local community or whatever, they go shoot match, like whatever they're trying to help, they pick that. When you instruct, you find out deeper about whatever it is you're trying to.
Great, 100%.
Right. And so.
And it doesn't always look good at the beginning, and you already disclosed that.
It's painful. Yeah. Like it's really hard. That's why I think a lot of people don't do it. Now, the teaching part, I'm saying a lot of people don't like to get to that high level of performance because they're not willing to put in the work. I think the same goes with teaching. You have to teach. This is not my personality, a very black and white statement, but I just don't believe you can walk out and just piss excellence and be the best instructor out there and do it on your first go.
There's a journey. Yep.
Like there is a journey of, and if you're not, let's just say it is a great one, it could be way better. Because I just think of on this year and how many classes we've taught in the instructor group we've built. Every time I see somebody teach their next one and their next one, you're just constantly refining and it's getting better and better and better. there's been multiple classes this year that are scheduled for September, October. There was one group, there's a state team in the Northeast. They scheduled, I think, what was that, November?
Mm-hmm.
When they called us and were like, hey, we want a course in September. And I was like, gosh, damn. Dude, I texted that guy the other day and I'm like, homie, that class is going to be amazing versus the class I would have given you back in November.
Right.
That was a good class. I'm just saying it has gotten so much better because we're constantly evolving and refining and it's getting better and better. And so
as evaluated by the feedback that you're getting from
students in the class, but also just from our instructor group. Because now that's the other piece is, excuse me. Yes, I'm excited and we're building an awesome team, but dude, we're reaching a limit with the amount of instructors we have across the country that it's also forming just relationships, like people that maybe come train with us, but don't end up working with us. So far, it seems that they've had good experiences and they're still out doing great things, right? And I think, how do we just continue to spread? It's not so much about the name, but what we're doing, the concept, right? And I want to create a culture that I see going in the right direction. And that's where, like, putting this out, I was kind of hesitant. I kind of balked there for a second, but we're holding a trial later this year. We've already got a group that's referred, but I think you and I just discussed this feels like it was last week. It's probably like 3 weeks, but
the time does fly.
Yeah, time flies. But we're, I think, going to put it out on social media and, at least this podcast of, hey, we'd love to see who's out there, because the other thing is kind of going back to what we were talking about. Yes, there is going to be some criteria, but there's going to be a lot of criteria, but I don't think we have this like perfect picture in our brain, because I'm definitely no one to throw stones.
No, I got you.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I was not expecting to be in here as a shooting instructor. That was not what my goal was, specifically whenever I started this. And then once it started going that direction. So I think some people, man, I don't care what your social media following looks like. What I care about is again, who are you? What is your performance? Do you have a teaching background? And I think there's some ways we can assess that performance and come out and train. Let's find out what you got.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things that came up for me this year, just in some of that tryout process, is, some of these folks that got referred and they fit those qualifications.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That have come down have been, this is taking it back to the movement piece and the ability to perform piece, and what we're asking people to be able to perform on demand when they get there. The questions that they start asking themselves about their current human performance programs and whatever they're training for, because a lot of them compete. And they do it in different levels, whether that's like a tactical games type thing or a USPSA thing or a PCC thing or whatever they're doing. And then they get out there and they kind of see what how this all kind of comes together, and they're big, strong, powerful athletes that could be moving a little bit faster. And they're looking at another big, powerful, strong athlete that moves way better than them. And, that thing that they're doing fits the competition or the end goal that they've had. As personally and maybe even professionally and maybe emotionally, how they look in their t-shirt and whatever else. But I think one of the things that's come up is like that it's been rewarding is to then they start asking the questions that for like a human performance coach could be considered a stupid question, right? And you're like, well, dude, let's look at your training program, and then it directly correlates with,
dude, we've had that question.
Why you're not doing as well in this particular thing.
It's been wild to me. It's been wild to me the more that we teach this class. And again, this comes back to the refinement, right? Like, of how do we really put the human performance piece in there so it's recognized, the importance of it. And I think maybe you and I need to clarify this. This is a big one. Human performance.
It's been a constant clarification process.
Like, I think people see that as some strength and conditioning program that's going to make you stronger, faster, more powerful, higher capacity. Like, human performance is just increasing the human body's performance. Right. Like that, I think sometimes it is way overcomplicated. And again, I don't think I'm jumping the gun here due to timing, but like, we've been working with multiple GMs that did really well. I don't think really well at nationals.
Improvement.
We helped them improve. I do believe we helped them improve. I just don't believe they also said, so I'm not stealing, but we help them improve their performance.
Yeah. And
from the human performance aspect,
and there's metrics
of their training.
There's metrics.
And so it's one of those things that professionals, that's what they do. And I think we're seeing it on some of the competition space. We've been doing it on the special operations side. And I think that's what's been interesting and exciting for me personally this year. When we go teach that class, a shooting class, quote unquote, or if some people can't see me, but holding up quotes, a shooting class, how many people after the class are like, how do I move better off the range?
Right.
And we've done a much better job. I think early on, it was a little too much human performance. And straight up, I'll say it. I think last year and maybe even into the upper front half of this year, maybe not front half, but
it's been more on the shooting side.
It was more on the shooting side. Whereas I think we've not yo-yoed, but we've leveled the two out to where like, I think we're at a very good place to where, listen, straight up, if you want to learn how to shoot at the best possible, listen, dude, there are world champion pistol, rifle, whomever, that I will be happy to share their information, go learn from them. But I think we can shoot very well. I think we teach shooting very well. But what we are really, really, really good at, and I do believe the best at it, is teaching how do you move and shoot collectively together. And I think that's where we've hyper-focused. And I think it's been this year, when we go teach a class, I think it's been the byproduct, or what's the word I'm looking for, validated by class.
By the consumer.
By the consumer in the class. They're like,
and that has to happen.
Yeah.
That has to happen.
It doesn't have to happen. Like, it hasn't until this year. And I do think that's what I'm saying, as we've refined it.
It has to happen in order to refine it, is where I was going with that. Yeah. Like, in order to say, like, this is how we get better. This is what we need to do better. This is what we need to continue to do. You have to get that feedback. And I want to go back to the metrics piece, because there are metrics to back up a lot of the baseline of where the curriculum is. Like, things are measured, right? Things are tracked. And I think, so that's an important thing to understand here, which again was a thing that really caught my attention when I first met you, was all the work that had been done from a research perspective. So that word gets used, a lot,
gets used a lot.
Like, what is that? But there was a lot of research and a lot of data. Let's just call it data collection first, to then be able to use for the research. And the way that was put together was, quite frankly, a very scientific process. It was repeatable.
It was, but early on, I don't mind. Like, early on in my career, when I first started collecting data and I was doing research, it was jacked up. Yeah. But then as I learned through the years, and
what's important,
I very much would love to call her out, but Dr. Jennifer Bunn down at Sam Houston State, she has been a huge advocate, and we have published, some people aren't going to understand this, but for those you do, multiple research papers, peer-reviewed in journals, respected journals. And I think that's something to be honest, I'm very proud of. Fun fact on Dr. Bunn is, whenever I was getting my doctorate, she was my professor over the research. And she almost failed me in that class, and I promised her I would never do research again. So it's funny to see it come full circle. No, she's been a big support for us. But I think through that, all that data collection it brings objective data
to use for the refinement,
what we're doing.
To use for refinement. You use it for support, and use it to objectively look at, like, are we doing this thing the right way?
Let's talk about objective versus subjective, because I think, so all people on here, we're all speaking the same language, right? Because I think sometimes people get confused. There's a lot of people using, I'm going to, again, air quote here, research to back and support what they're doing. Objective is fact. Subjective is not. Subjectives are your thoughts, feelings, and opinions. And I think, as I see that in the industry sometimes.
Oh, it's the toughest thing. It's the thing that creates, it's the subjective stuff that often creates the most amount of attention, talk, drama, whatever. And that's what I was trying to avoid. Like, how do I navigate through this to find more of the objective stuff, and where is that coming from? So to your point, like, objectively collecting data, being able to use that in a way, number one, that you understand what you're looking at, right? Is this consistent, right? Is it, can we validate this? Is this repeatable? Like, is this something that we can actually use, or are we just cherry picking things?
Right.
Also, like, how much of it are you bringing in? Like, and how much of what you are delivering is purely based on that, because subjective stuff is important. And the longer you do anything, you'll recognize the importance of where each fits in, because there's the application piece, and then there's the real life, and then there's the experience pieces of some people, despite that not having a lot of objective data, have done some very subjective things with some knowledge of objective data, and have had a lot of success with it. So you cannot discount that. And so again, like, on the human performance side, case in point is, like, look, if you made it on stage without an education in, if you made it on stage into the highest levels, like IFBB, bodybuilder or whatever, right? Like the bro science, right? Versus the actual scientists. The bottom line at the end of the day is they're probably both right.
Yeah.
Right. At some level.
And
these are conversations I've been having with professional human performance coaches that do work in law enforcement and in the military that are training folks. And I've had several of them. Some of them, I just released one on the podcast a little while ago. We have another one that's in the can that's coming up, and I got another one programmed down the road too, to talk about this, right? And at these different levels with these different folks and what they need versus what they want, and being able to deliver a little bit of that together. And going back to your guy, Preston hit me right between the eyes the very first time I shook his hand and I met him about some of the stuff we're doing on the human performance side. He's like, this is what I think is good. And this is where I think it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I was like, thank you for telling me that. Like, explain more. Like, please go on, elaborate. And he broke that down for me to help me understand it. My point being is there was a lot of objective stuff there because that's what I was presented with first. And the subjective stuff is something I needed to pick up later. And that came from inside the team. And then obviously from this validation that's coming from the outside too. And so like I said, at the end of the day, I think the coming together as the team and where the information comes from and how the outside looking in might look at it might not make a lot of sense. Yeah. And I think what I've watched happen with you is that you've become way more comfortable with that.
Oh yeah.
And I mean that in a very complimentary way. In that, look, I want people to know what we're doing, but I also understand the challenges in delivering the specifics about what we're doing and giving it to people, and going back to Chris and how you deliver in digestible amounts to try to get them to, because that's really all we should be doing, right? Otherwise, what are we doing? And there has to be some things that we're measuring there to understand is that working right? And that's the toughest thing. Again, like you mentioned, like the last half of that last year, and then maybe the front half of this year, and like what's happened with human performance, how much of the public, if you will, sees that versus who's behind the scenes taking the courses or involved in delivering those courses and bringing it together. It really is had to me, it's been frustrating at times, but not frustrating because I don't think any of it's bad or wrong or anything like that. It's frustrating in that, like, how do we do this better? And I want answers now.
Yeah.
And I want an immediate, answer and a solution to this now. And we just had to recognize, like, well, that is the big challenge, isn't it? It's finding.
Dude, it is. And I think because, again, as we were growing and learning, dude, there was one point we talked about this. I was like, I think we'll try to teach one class a month. We're going to look at 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just say my wife is a little pissed because I had told her, 12 classes this year. And I'm kind of joking, but I'm also very much, with my wife part, I'm not, but we didn't know what to expect. Right. And I think it's a lot of fun. It's really cool to go back and look at. The system has been, it's hard for me, to be very honest with you, to look back on the journey. And I have a lot of these moments. There's been multiple times this year flying back from DC that I've just been like, how the hell did I get here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did this happen? Like, even talking to Chris, I want to talk on him for a second because I think it's cool. A lot of people obviously don't know him.
Chris is the guy behind. Chris is the guy behind the social media. He's also he's also on SWAT at a particular agency.
Yep.
Very dedicated, very busy guy in his personal life. Right, a lot of things going on. Very committed to the team. Mostly, the thing that I got from Chris was doing the right thing. Dude. Like he wants to make sure we're doing the right thing, and he's looking out for everybody in that sense. And he's also very critical of himself and everybody else in a very productive and honest kind of way. Yeah.
So, I mean, dude,
and I appreciate that.
It is. And I think that's what I'm saying. Like, just the team would be able to build, like, somebody who is a SWAT officer in the community, literally just learned social media on his own, has done a very good job. But the thing I think I want to call Chris out about, though, is when we started this, I was a problem on social media. I hate social media. It's for me, Jake, personally, I don't care what other people do, but for me personally, it was negative at times. So I was just like, F it, dude. Like, Chris, it's all yours, man. Like, just rock on. But at the same time, I'm not dogging him, but because I think he would say this, like, where he was at that time as a shooter was definitely not where he is now. But I think there were sometimes difficulties where he and I had to work a lot together, and he would hear my voice as I was teaching on a topic. Mm-hmm. That dude does everything now. He understands shooting at a higher level. He's taking classes. He has listened to me obviously talk a lot. He's out competing. The team we have built, I'm just super proud of, and for me personally, just how fortunate we've been to have somebody run a social media that is just putting out amazing information, but he took it upon himself to go learn all of that information.
So that he could do that.
So that he could do it.
Right.
Whereas like people just try to build highlight reels or different things that's just straight fluff. Mm-hmm. And I just think to understand like the people that have come in and had an impact to put out this great information that have spurred courses like Instagram and social media, like it, love it, hate it. In my opinion, the cold hard truth is there are people out there that validate instructors based off their social media.
Yep.
Like it is what it is.
I
don't agree. I don't think you should do that, right. But unfortunately that's what happens. And I think Chris has been a big influence in that. We have gotten multiple courses this year from inquiries on social media.
It's a powerful thing, man.
Yeah. Now, fortunately, less than we have by word of mouth, but still, those are classes.
Right.
And so, yeah, man.
Right. And then been invited back based on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
Based
you get a first time
initial
chance and then it's like, hey man, hopefully don't mess this up.
Yeah. I think that's an important thing too, is that the opportunities to get back in front of the same people to see what people have taken away. Yeah, right. Yeah. And done well with, or need help with, or what they actually were able to digest, assimilate, and then put into practice, and which helps you refine your process. And I think, you can be out teaching classes all the time and kind of getting in front of the same types of people, but never actually seeing it come full circle. I've talked to other instructors that do this all the time. They go, man, they keep asking me back here and I'm happy to come out here and keep doing it. Yeah. Right. But these guys are literally the same freaking guys that I was in front of 2 years ago. And I came back twice in that year and once in this year, and they're not applying the things that I'm teaching.
We've been super fortunate on that front. I
think it's part of it. It's not just fortunate. It's also been about the support mechanisms that are in place, right? And the relationships that have been built here to continue to provide the support beyond the 2-day, the 3-day, or whatever.
That's what I was just about to say.
The constant, hey, let's work this problem together. Yeah. It's not just sign me up for a class, you book it, I'll book it, you fill it. I'll come in, I'll teach my thing. Namaste, have a good day. Right. Everybody's had a good time. Everybody learns something. Everybody walks away. I'm on to the next thing. It's deeper than that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we've been fortunate at the places we're going to that we'll teach a class, earn trust and or respect. And it's like, hey, can y'all teach anything in this realm? Or like, yeah, actually we do. Or yes, we can.
Right.
And let us figure it out. And we, like you said, work together.
It's not a sales game. It's a relationship building
100%.
game. Yeah. And again, going back to marketing, what are you marketing? Right. And so how are you doing that? Right?
Well, it comes back to like, we had to, I don't want to say we had to, but we made a post because we had so many people asking us if we were teaching six classes this year or 7, whatever it was.
Right.
Because that's all.
Where do I find all
your social media?
Because that's what we put up on our website.
Our website, sorry.
Because that's what the open enrollments were. Yeah. But at the same time, no. And then one of the only reasons we're doing that is because freaking busy. Like we can only be in so many places at one time.
So we just hadn't posted it because people were calling and we were getting all these closed classes. And, again, funny about it is all of a sudden we posted that and we got 3 classes in the 24 hours.
Again, like people want to say, oh, these guys are on demand. That does drive like that supply, at the same time.
Straight up. And I don't, to be honest, I don't have a problem with that. They're just vetting. And a lot of people are using that as a vetting source. And
you got to be smart about it.
And like I said, we're
that's where Chris comes in.
Yeah. 100%.
That was Chris's idea. Is like, maybe we should just put out what we're actually doing out there. Yeah. And we learned from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a learning process in that post. Like, oh, we should have maybe crossed these out and maybe put a little bit more in the description.
Right. And like it again, and we've been fortunate to where some of the circles we're teaching in either don't go off social media or it's just a word of mouth.
That's the thing.
Like you have to be vetted by someone else that puts you in that to give you that opportunity. And so a lot of those, again, 17-ish, maybe not quite 17, but probably at least 12 of those came from a word of mouth approach. And that's the only way you get in there. Mm-hmm. However, the social media side has been a big piece of that.
It's a support. It's like it's kind of like a Yelp in a sense. Like they hear about you depending on what pathway you came from. If you come in through the social media route, that's kind of the end pathway on the, maybe it's like a 50-50 split, but somebody hears about you, right? And then where do they go? Where are they going to go? Well, in this realm, right? It's like, well, what are they doing on social media? So I go there to kind of validate or match up what I'm hearing versus what I'm seeing. And then maybe they go to your website and they check out some stuff. And, you know, in the Yelp world, you go to Yelp and that's where you're going to see the bad stuff and the good stuff because it's uncontrolled by the business itself, right? Like people can write and say whatever they want. Yeah. Well, that's kind of Instagram now, right?
Right.
And there's different ways you can do that. You know, you can do lives and get on with people. Those seem to be dying. You know, those aren't getting the same attention they used to get. You know, the social media's world is kind of going, lives are kind of dead, you know, at this point. I think for a lot of reasons, you know, you got YouTube and what they're doing out there, and there's all these other platforms and all these other places people can go. But the importance of the social media piece is to put some stuff out. And so in just tying a bow on that with Chris, there's been a learning process there too. So there was people, you know, initially, like I think after I sat down with my first interview for you, which was closer to 2 years ago now.
I was going to say, I was trying to get back to that.
Closer to 2 years ago now. The point of that is like, I'm confused. What are these guys doing?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I get it. That's why I wanted to talk to Jake, because I wasn't entirely sure. It looked interesting to me. Yeah. That's why I dug into the questions. But the trying to pull the things together. So again, like there's this refinement, and I think people will see some different stuff coming out, and they'll wonder, you know, that there may be a little confusion about it at the same time, but that's why we're talking about it now, I think, and just kind of trying to bridge the gap as we're trying to bridge the gap with how to communicate this stuff better and what's the important things that people need to pull away in order to lead them to the trough, to ask some questions. And it's not to sell a class. The thing that I think that you mentioned very early on with me, and I think you mentioned in the show, is making sure we're delivering the right kind of information to help the people. And that is from the culture that's what I got is, you know, you talked about Preston and Sal, and we talked about, you know, the team in general, is what they see or what they saw, and the reason they want to be on the team is because they realize how important the information is to get out to the people that they work with. And a large part of the show is trying to help push that information out from a lot of different levels, not just IEP. Like I could be doing that every day, right? But I'm not doing that. There's so many other people out there that are contributing good things. And most of the time when I have folks on, it's people that a lot of people just don't know about yet, but they are doing this in whatever environment they happen to be in, you know, whether that's, you know, again, maybe it's a combatives thing and a DT thing, maybe it's shooting, maybe it's, you know, small team stuff, maybe it's leadership or whatever else, just trying to bring more information to the table. It's not an easy thing to do. So, you know, I think people are very judgmental. They're very, ADD when it comes to looking at stuff. And so I'm not surprised that people are sometimes confused by what they see out there. Like it's tough to keep up. So,
And I mean, and again, we've had this conversation before.
Fundamentally, it's still the same.
And but I was, there was a time where I was kind of confused too. So like, I don't think it's a bad on the consumer.
I appreciate I appreciate the honesty.
There was times I think we were trying to kind of find our way, where the human performance side, that was the low hanging fruit. But then we started having encouragement towards that other piece. Right. And like, you know, I said, I don't know however long ago now, but I think we swung a little far at one point. But whereas like right now we're like really hitting our stride. Mm-hmm. And so, and I think people are seeing that, right? And I think we're in the right communities where
they're pushing you.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I don't even feel like it's us at this point. We're getting bumped to different.
It's a good place to be.
We're getting bumped to different units by word of mouth because that's the only place those places go. And it's provided some really cool opportunities, man. As I know you're aware of, it's, and especially as we continue to grow our team, I think that's the other piece of taking guys that some people didn't know about,
right?
That are, I promise you right now, when they go teach, I think Sal actually, I'm going to steal his quote, but he was like, dude, when some of these dudes are going and teaching, they don't know about them, but I promise you they won't forget them when they leave.
He did say that on the show. Yeah, he said that on the show too.
And I think it's been fun, man. It's been a good year. I think, you know, now it's like, where do we go from here? Right. I think that's our next piece.
No, it is the next piece. And it's the thing that you and I have been talking about with Aaron and some of the other guys in the background, but it's definitely now knowing what everybody knows, right? Both inside and outside of IEP. It just puts us in a better position to make some of those decisions. Some of them have already been made and there's things in play, but it's also not trying to get to an end state. It's never been about that.
Right. 100%.
Having a vision, obviously, and a light at that end of the tunnel is a very important
direction.
But the direction piece, but I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be overcomplicated, you know, as you were saying. but there's some complexities in there that need to be worked out. And so now it's kind of at a place, I think, where we can do that and really understand, like, okay, now how do we look at the different silos of what's going on and make sure that we're providing the right kind of information, and the teams that are out there that are working on our like human performance programs, like how do we do a better job delivering information? How do we get more engagement there? How do we do a better job at not just giving them information, but getting information back? It's the same way, like in the classes, right? Like, like, hey, we did this, like we're trying to deliver this stuff to you. How much of this is helpful? And like, while the program might be great, if nobody's doing it, like, or if very few people are doing it, like, how do we make that better? That's focus on that. It's not a programming problem, right? There's likely a relationship or communication problem here, or breakdown here. How do we do a better job with that? And these are all the things that are happening in the background of the business, not just with booking more classes, right? And going to put more rounds, downrange, on practice and things like that. There's all this other stuff that I think a lot of people miss. I know most people miss in the background, that's kind of happening. And as I'm talking to a lot of other instructors out there, just like you, I do it daily, whether it's through, a message system or on the phone, I'm talking to, and the things that things I hear out there are people are, there's a lot of things that have happened this year. I feel like everybody came in really hot to 2025, right? I was at SHOT Show for the first month. Man, the attitude, the energy, we got a new administration coming in. There were a lot of companies and manufacturers that had new product releases this year. They had new, services, things that they were doing. There had been some shuffling in terms of leadership roles and things like that. People have been pushed around. There's a lot of good energy, right? And my instructor friends were like, look, last year was really slow. Like, particularly towards the end of the year in terms of booking classes. Like I had a lot of empty seats, and I'm having to make some adjustments going into next year. And I'm not exactly sure what those are going to look like, because typically I would have 40 classes on the schedule. Right now I got 30, and 35% of those they have 0 people in them right now. I've got to make some adjustments. Then we watched the first couple months of the year happen. We had things like tariffs and things that were happening with administrative changes, things that were happening with Doge, right? And what was happening with funding. And you're shaking your head because that impacted us. It impacts other people too. And so they're trying to make these adjustments out there. And so I think the things that I was saying about IEP and trying to figure it out, dude, I've talked to CMOs at several very, very large companies in this industry, and they all saying the same thing. It's like, one very specific, I said, so what's happening out there? She said, does anybody really fucking know? Like, we are just trying to get through this month. Like, what's going to happen next month or whatever. So this is a very natural part of the process is all I'm saying. And it's not isolated. And I don't think that a lot of consumers understand on the back end. And if it looks at some point like a company, I'm not saying it's IEP, but it looks like your favorite gun manufacturer, your favorite equipment, optics or whatever, looks like they're getting a little off track. That's a figuring out process. That's what that is. That is a very natural part of learning. It's a very natural part of reacting to certain things. It's a part of the testing process. It's a part of figuring it out. And it's not always going to look pretty, right? It's not always going to look pretty. And I think the people on the inside of those companies, if they recognize that and they're not doing knee-jerk reactions to things, there will always be a few of those.
Sure.
But if they're not doing knee-jerk reactions to those things, and if people can just kind of be patient and maybe, I'm not saying give grace, but just look maybe a little deeper, more specifically ask a few more questions rather than coming out with like, oh, this happened, or this person is doing this specific thing, or this company's doing this specific thing because they're desperate. And they need, look, there may be some truth in that.
Sure, yeah.
Right? But maybe just use your fucking brain for a second. It's also
not a guaranteed,
It isn't, man. Yeah. And I think maybe just use your brain for a second and stop looking to attack, this is right or this is wrong, or, oh, this is it. This is the end of this thing, or whatever else, while people are trying to figure it out. And I've always tried to keep that in mind, because as a business owner, like, I get that. Like, I've made a ton of mistakes. There's been unclarity a lot of times. I've had lots of clarity at other times, and had my finger on the pulse and go, I know exactly what to do, right? What's going to happen. There's other times I'm like, I'm not sure what to do. Yeah. And you've always been very humble and upfront with me about that, just internally, but I think you do that externally pretty well. And I don't know that there's a lot of folks that do that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, dude, we've been super fortunate to be tied in with people that have given a lot of direction. Like I said, it's been a tough process for me. I've learned a lot. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not a business guy with my background. Like I had my doctorate. I was an infantry guy. Like
that's it.
A lot of people don't even know this. Even my undergrad was in education. Mm-hmm. So like full circle, great. I'm back teaching again. Different, but this not right, but not business. Mm-hmm. And so I think as we looked at it and how much we've grown, some of the opportunities we have, I'm even thinking as I was listening to you talk about tech and different things, some of the companies that we've been able to have, support us with products, different weapon manufacturers to test out things and not us get siloed on something and like, this is the only one.
Right.
That we've been able to, yep. Yeah, exactly. And because again, I care way more about our reputation than I do about making money by being paid by some manufacturer. Right. But we've also been super fortunate to try out some pretty good tech that's out there. In addition to all the other stuff we're doing, there's just so many opportunities. I think it comes back to, okay, phrase. It's do less and obsess, mm-hmm. right? Like don't get caught up in all the different shiny objects out there. I think we've done a really good job of that this year. I think it easily could have gotten out of hand of like, let's go start all these 15 classes of these good ideas that these people are giving us. No. Bring it back. We did a great job of refining to what I believe is where we should be. And as we go to the next steps, like you said, I think everybody's been there at some point of like, okay, well, now what? Well, our now what is not out of a necessity in the sense of, well, we're running out.
We run out, yeah.
It's more so, I don't want to say we're drowning. That sounds too negative, but we have enough that we're like, shit, something better happen or we may be drowning.
Right.
Right.
We need to control the controllables, right? Before we start putting any more on the plate. Sometimes it means taking a thing or two off the plate.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's where, obviously, this, some of the listeners, maybe not. We're bringing in more instructors. Mm-hmm. We're really wanting to build out that cadre. And I think even that's open doors, right? Because now we're seeing of all these like really good officers across the country that's like, this is amazing. Like we're creating a culture. Well, what other opportunities come from that? Right? Like, even if they're not teaching with IEP, at least they're one step further, mm-hmm. right? It's almost like it's somewhat of a train the trainer model to an extent, even though we're not profiting from it. But I also think that's one of the reasons we've been successful.
Because
I think that as we've gone in, I do believe we give a shit. And I think, to be very frank, I think people have seen that we genuinely do give a shit.
Yeah, there's way more that's given on the back end than is received, from a monetary perspective or a publicity perspective. I mean, you just mentioned that there's a lot of folks out there that are not going to talk about it, and that you've been totally okay with that.
Yeah, no, right? And there's been a lot. I mean, straight up, there's a lot of things that I'm super super proud of, and some of those, the biggest ones, have literally $0 attached to them. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'm super proud that we've given to different officers and teams and things that need funding or whatever it may be in that moment that no one will ever know about except for those teams.
Right.
And it's not a Jake thing. That is the company, because we literally have had guys that have stepped up and said like, hey, this is the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And that's what we decided to do. And I'm proud of that. Again, that comes back to recruiting the right people. And then as we continue to build this out, again, I just think the sky's the limit of like, what type of culture can you build? Is everybody going to go running around teaching across the country? Probably not.
No.
But can we build out a team of a network of, can we build out a team that's either, I think the whole piece, the other thing is like social media, going backwards a little bit, of social media and some of the online platforms, different things that we're working on that came from ideas from some of these units we're working with. I just think there's so much out there, man. And it's been a cool journey. Definitely challenging. And I think a lot of people like, hey man, how's it going?
It depends on the day.
It depends on the day. Like, dude, 100%. Like, it's like, damn, dude, I'm busy. And everybody's like, yeah, but that's a good thing. And you're like, is it? There's those times, those days where you're just like,
try not to get too high or too low is the key to that success there. But I think one of the things you just said right there that I'll take away from this conversation that I'm not sure I had really been previously kind of thinking about is that the driving, like the ideas piece, is not something that's coming from anybody else other than the consumer, right? It's the person that's actually going through the experience and giving the feedback. It's not looking to what somebody else did or is doing that seems to be the right answer. It might be for them and it might be for their consumer or whoever their audience is or whatever else, but we are taking direct feedback from the people that are valuing and giving us their time and feedback in order to refine the process. No. I
like, as I'm listening to you, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to, yes, I do think that was the idea, but even hearing you say it, I even think back to class 1, patient 0, if you will. Like Sal and Preston were students in that class. Their feedback is what has guided the next one.
Yeah.
And then the next one.
And I think that's the interesting part is because it's very internal, right? It's not external, right? So people can only see, right? And judge and or evaluate, however you want to look at that word, what they're seeing externally if they're not internal. And which is, again, part of the reason I wanted to have this conversation.
Well, even this year, there's so much that everybody can't see anyway.
Yeah,
like half of our classes are closed, and a very large chunk of those we can't and don't post about anyway.
It's not secretive to IEP.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. But even that, I don't give a shit, frankly. I think that's one of my things is sometimes people get, I know you know this, but I'll go on my tangent, I guess, here, because I've kind of held on it. But, you know, we hear these chirpings sometimes from the, you know,
the peanut gallery.
And yeah, it makes me chippy. But it's one of those things like people don't know unless you're inside of IEP what we're doing. Even in this podcast has been so vague, but at the same time, like how much we've progressed. If you want to know more, call us.
Right.
Reach out to us on social media, our website, take a class, or again, call me. I will get on a phone with you and talk to you about it.
Yeah. Wait, hold on.
Yep,
so I'm just going to say, like, so you just said that publicly, and I think
I'm not going to put my number out.
So I'm looking out for your relationship with your wife, because I know how that goes, because
unfortunately I will,
because you literally will. And you'll do that to a fault. I would not be in the situation I'm in, even with you and IEP, had other people not done that for me. So and that I do that for other folks as well. So that is a very noble thing. And I think that, but to the point is, look, there's a lot of things happening, and it's sometimes tough to understand what's going on the outside, and that's fine. And it's where we do things like this, have podcasts or whatever. You can look on social media. It's not all there, but it's totally available and accessible. And that's part of our core values, is making this stuff available and accessible.
That's our goal.
To anybody who needs it, anybody who's carrying a gun, right? Whether it's a professional or a law-abiding citizen or whatever else that wants to get better.
I'll eat this one too. I'm going to say it, but I'm going to put some caveats in here because I've done this numerous times. We've had people reach out on social media, and I'll tell them like, hey, listen, if I'm in town, if you want to buy a plane ticket and come and train, I'll train with you.
Oh, again, I caution you to say,
there's going to be some major caveats here. And I recognize, like, again, the time is limited, much more limited even than it used to be. But and it's not just me, other guys have done the same thing off of our team.
And guys have done that for you.
And guys have done that for me. Exactly. Right. So I think that it's something that, again, I think that there's a lot behind the scenes that people don't know, and that's okay. I truly, I know we've had this discussion, like, I don't care. What I will not be is goated into putting more on social media. That's where I was going. Not where I just won't budge on it, because I don't believe the relationships we've built are worth, for the peanut gal, the people chipping in from, the deep seats.
So I guess what I'm hearing you say is like, you're not going to be goated into exposing the people and the places that are getting these.
Yeah, it's not even that. I mean, yes, that is, but it's
at the same time, because somebody has an opinion that they really don't know a lot about. Like, you're going to come to it with a response or whatever. That is one way to handle it, and that's the way I've typically handled myself, because it starts to get into places that don't.
It's not.
It just doesn't matter.
And I think that's one of my things. I think this is something I've seen on social media. People get deep into social media to the point where they think they know someone. Sometimes, I don't know if there's a good side of that. Maybe there is, I'm not sure. But more so, I see the negative side of it. And listen, there's been people that I really do enjoy meeting people. And it's not from a famous standpoint, because there's people that are actually famous. But I have bumped into people that I really do appreciate coming and saying hi. but there's also been sometimes, one time in particular I can think of, where this person came up and was talking to me, and I was like, I at first I was struggling to figure out where I knew this person from. And it's because they had seen me enough on social media that they were talking to me.
They felt like they had a relationship with you.
Yes. And I think that's just like an example, but I think that the opposite happens to where it's like, well, these people don't know.
Yep.
Or they do know.
Because if you believe that could be true.
Based off of just the social media piece.
Agreed 100%.
And I think that is very damaging. And I think that's the importance of getting on a call with somebody or having a conversation where even through email or something that's deeper. And then obviously face-to-face is the best way to do that. But I think that, I will not be goaded into putting more things out just to appease people's opinion of us. I believe what we're doing is a great thing. I think we're building an awesome team. And I think it's been a freaking fun year.
Yep.
And we've already got 6 classes booked for next year, and we're barely halfway through this one. So
man, I just to echo that comment, like I have relationships that I value highly with folks that are very popular on social media, and I don't typically, if they've been on the show, right? They've been on the show, that's for the public, right? But I have conversations with people offline, and I don't talk about those conversations unless it's, it's relevant to a particular subject matter that I know that they would be fine with me sharing, because something that was maybe talked about before. My point being is that I do know that there's some of those people, there's going to be those that like them and those that don't. And sometimes I get tested through social media, like, hey, this dude, he said this, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't agree. I'm like, well, then you should have that conversation with that guy. Right.
I think I was involved in one of those
but
a year ago.
Probably.
Well, no, not me. I didn't have a problem, but somehow I got roped into it, and I was like, anyway, sorry, I digress.
My point being there is like, you should be having that conversation with that guy.
Yeah,
and most of the good ones are good like that. Like a lot of not everybody, but most of the good ones are. My point being is like, I'm not going to get goaded into talking shit about somebody because you think you don't, you think you think you know them, right? And you're making a judgment call based on that. I'm not doing that. I'm happy to have a conversation if you can bring something legitimate to the table. But at the same time, like, and again, that should be offline. You want to have a private conversation with me, I'll have it with you. But I'm not going to make judgment calls based on your judgment call, right? Like, I'm just not doing that. I will be happy to go down a path with you and maybe try to provide some perspective on my own perspective. That's it. Like, this is my perspective, and this is what I've learned in my conversations with so-and-so. But at the same time, I appreciate that. And I think it's a slippery slope, right? Like, you want to provide good information, but and some of that's well received and some of it isn't. And then somebody has something to say, and then you can either react to that or you cannot. And I think that's an important lesson probably for people to take away is like, does this really matter? Yeah. And no, I'm not going to do that just to appease you or because people think maybe you should be defending yourself. And I mean, that's not Jake or IP. I just mean in general. And I think there's a lot of that going on. I think, look, if you're going to be involved in social media, like, it's a two-way street, man. Like, and if you're only playing the one-way street, stopping by, dropping comments or whatever, and you're not willing to have a conversation, then you can be there and do that all you want. It's fucking America. Yeah, you do you. But like, what are you doing here, man? Anyway, that said, I don't want to go down get off on that rabbit hole. Yeah, that's super different. Look, I mean, I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking time out. I mean, there's long travel today to get here. We've got, you got to get out on the range tomorrow, get set up. I'm encouraged to be with you and in front of folks tomorrow to kind of see what's happening. And to be clear, I'm not a firearms instructor. So anybody that thinks, what, is Scott teaching for you? No, I do not. I'm a terrible shot, right? Like in comparison, like this is not my game. I don't have any desire to be a firearms instructor. I've said that, been public about that. I've never had any desire, don't intend to be. I don't give firearms training advice. I send them to the right people that I know can answer questions, that kind of thing. But I'm encouraged to go out there and kind of see how things have evolved lately, because we said it's been kind of an exponential, lightning speed rate lately. And see how people react and get feedback. And you know me, like, and I say this all the time, like, I'm a nerd and I study people kind of and what they're taking away, how they're doing it, and then how to help those people get better through IEP and what we can do from there, just you and me as a team, and then the collective team. We're talking about Aaron and all the folks.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a fun week for me. It's going to be a good time.
It's going to be a blast. I think it's just another piece of like, I mean, I know you, obviously I know this, but you saying it of like, hey, I'm not teaching firearms, but I think it's just another piece of the puzzle. Again, like the things we're trying to accomplish of how we're trying to develop out instructors and the background you have in that. Again, just how the team is fully formed. So it's going to be good. It's going to be a good week. I'm excited. The weather's looking really nice.
Yeah.
It's not Texas.
We don't have Texas or East Coast weather. It's going to be a little warm, a little dry, but no, it should be good, man. So it's probably time for me to put some food in you. Get some dinner in you, and we'll get out of here. But listen, just on the IEP side of things, just a little plug at the end. You know, where do people go to find out more? What do you want them to do? If they want to book classes or
got our
have
website,
a discussion.
Got our website, inextremisperformance.com. We have our Instagram, which is INEXT Performance. Our Instagram, you can go find a lot of really good information. It's kind of discussed. And then our website, we have our on-site training or our live training, things where we have it. And then we have all of our programming on there. Our static programs, which are 10 to 12 weekers. I can't remember exactly, but and then our just ongoing program. But at the same time, as you know, for everyone else listening, we have a lot of agencies that we work direct with. We have custom programs specifically built for them for their job. So if that's something of interest, obviously they just reach out. Via social media, usually is a pretty quick one, or we have our contact form. On the website. So, which thanks to a man here, we got it all spun up and
Eli,
Eli,
who's this man behind the podcast, but Eli's been very helpful there. He's the guy I go cry. I go cry too when I haven't, because again, going back to like evolutions and having to learn new things and being an idiot and all that stuff, like learning new things at, you know, my advanced age, and you know, I want it to be easy. It's never easy. I have great ideas, and I think things should work a certain way, and when they don't, I get really frustrated. Which is a
talking
flaw.
Advanced age. I was booking a class today for one of our instructors, and I was booking his flight, and I saw his birthday, and I was like, "Gosh, damn it!" I was like, "Dude, I'm freaking old, man."
Yeah. It catches.
It's all relative. It is. But still, I was like, "Holy smokes!"
I'm trying to stay as young as I can for as long as I can, but I'm a child in terms of my emotional state when it comes to things not going my way. That said, on the you know, just on the reaching out part, I would tell people this: look, if you're in one of those agencies and you're not sure, but you know, maybe you're in a position of influence or whatever, call somebody in your agency and ask, like, dude, before you reach out, like maybe just do a little research.
Dude, I'll even put an extra step out there, because we have had multiple agencies do this to us as well. They call us and ask for referrals or that's what I'm looking for.
Referral or like a testimonial or recommendation.
Yeah, recommendation. That's what I was looking for. I mean, because
a reference.
Reference is the exact word I was looking. I was knew it was an R, but I was trying to
here we go. References.
Word? References. So we've had people ask for references, which I think is important. Like, y'all are both law enforcement. Like, have that discussion internally, and obviously it's people we work with, so they can give you very in depth of exactly what it is. So I think if you're ever hesitant on it, but again, I'll put it out there. You want to hop on a call?
Yep, it's there. You can book a call. You can book a call with Jake. Right? I personally set that up. Like, you could go in there, you can drive a thing on the class schedule side of things. If there's something you want to talk about, like
I really do enjoy having those conversations. Unfortunately, that time is getting limited. My wife might shoot me, but no, it's all good.
Right on, man. Well, like I said, I'm looking forward to a good time. Thanks again for joining me today. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you the next couple of days. Keep up the good work, man, and keep keeping me motivated. I appreciate you.
We're going to keep it. Appreciate it, man. Thanks, dude.